What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of No Huddle Necessary. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Super excited for this episode. We have some really good guests, special guests on today. Really excited. Cannot wait to get into it. Like I said, there's a ton of stuff we got to talk about. Got Urban Meyer stuff to talk about once again. And of course, it's not for anything good. Going to talk a little bit of Dallas Cowboys, maybe a little bit of Chiefs. There's a bunch of stuff we got to get into today. So super excited for tonight's episode. Let's go ahead and bring in our guests. First up, going to bring in Mr. Joey Quiroga. How you doing today?
How's it going? Thanks for having me, man. And happy college signing day, baby. Good job, Arizona Wildcats. Big 4-star sign for some of the first times in years.
Nice. Good job for you guys. Shout out to Deion Sanders down there at Jackson State, flipping top recruits from Florida State. Great to see that for HBCUs. Hopefully a lot of other guys follow suit. We'll see. Let's go ahead and bring in Mr. Chris Jordan. How you doing today, CJ?
I'm doing great, man. How about you doing, man?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. You know, so a little bit of a behind the scenes. Chris was checking out Men in Black 2. I could tell from the scene in the background before the show. Good movie, good movie. I like to take
it out sometimes, man. Sometimes you gotta watch the classics, man. Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I said we had a special guest on today. That special guest is former host of No Huddle Necessary, Mr. Jeff Barnes. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm glad to be back in the house, man. You know, you got to come back to the house that Jeff built.
Absolutely. That's exactly what this is. Like I said, Jeff sent me the background. Jeff set it all up for me. Like I said, I just get to have fun now at this point. So
I ain't got no shot, man. No shot, man. I ain't got no shot.
Hey, listen.
Quit now.
I am a fair host. Okay, I grade fairly. You have no problems with me. Trust me. All righty. And we have, of course, Mr. Bill Carroll here today. How are you doing today, sir?
Just coming in from professional obligations, but always a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're super happy to have you. And I'm really excited. We got a good panel. We got some really good questions. Shout out Randall letting Coach Prime for the win. Absolutely. Like I said,
much to the chagrin of Mike Rambling Tigers.
Super excited for what? Right. But like I said, we got a ton of stuff to get into today. So let's go ahead and get into it because I'm super excited to see what you guys have to say. So let's get ready for this first quarter. Alrighty, so we hadn't spoken about Urban Meyer in quite some time. You know, he had that situation, you know, at the Chop House, off field, crazy stuff going on, right? No need to bring that old stuff back up. But it was kind of quiet in Jacksonville. Granted, they were losing games, but you know, at least there wasn't as much of the circus off the field with Urban, you know. And then things started to pop up. We started hearing rumors. We start hearing how Marvin Jones and him are getting into it, and Marvin Jones literally leaves the facility, and they have to beg him to come back. Basically, reports that Urban Meyer basically looked at all of the assistants who, by the way, he hired, and basically was just like, "Yeah, tell me what you guys have won, and tell me why you're a loser." Basically, then you have reports today about ex-kicker Josh Lambo talking about Urban Meyer kicked him during bunch of crazy stuff. Now, with all that being said, owner Shad Khan has been very stout in, hey, I'm not rushing this. We want to give time. We don't want to make any hasty decisions. And granted, we know also the relationship that Khan and Urban Meyer have. It's the big reason why Urban Meyer got the job. So I think we all are in agreement that Urban Meyer should be fired at the end of the year. The question is, will he be? Joey, we're going to start with you.
Man, I think I was on last time when he was caught down on the town and hanging out with all those lovely ladies. But man, there's a lot to peel back on this situation, that's for sure. Everything just keeps bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and coming out. And now, of course, they're having some of the players speak out. Trevor Lawrence looked extremely uncomfortable talking about it. So he kind of just went with a phrase, and hey, we can't do much. Well, why we're always in the limelight. But anyway, man, I don't know. I really don't think he's gonna survive, obviously, with just this much turmoil. But I also just think that I just think that ownership that's down there, they're gonna keep him around. Just maybe give him another year. Started from they started in a really bad spot. They do have 2 wins, so they're not actually the worst team in the NFL at this moment record-wise. But they look like it. They look like it's a guarantee. If you play them, it's almost a guaranteed win, except for those 2 teams that they took care of business on. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a tough situation for everybody involved. That's obviously not what you're looking for out of a leadership position. But also, let's be real, man. Like Urban Meyer's always been the biggest guy in the room and everywhere he's been, except for here in the NFL. So a lot of guys don't transition well. A lot of college coaches don't transition well. And I think this is just another case of one of those guys not being able to handle it when it gets to that level.
Yeah, and it's a problem that we see a lot with college coaches. They come to the NFL, and especially guys that have had a lot of success like Urban has, they're used to being the end-all be-all. They're used to being the one who makes all of the decisions and everyone listens to them. Well, that's cool when you're working with 18 and 19-year-olds. When you have grown men who are 27, 28, 29, 30 years old, and also, by the way, are making more money than you, it's hard to kind of have them buy into that, like the same tactics that you would use before. You mentioned they have 2 wins and the Detroit Lions have a worse record, but I think you can tell, like with the Detroit Lions, that they actually play for Dan Campbell. Like you can tell everyone in that locker room loves him. I don't know if there's anyone in the Jacksonville Jaguars locker room who actually wants Urban Meyer there. So that's a huge problem there. Chris, what are you thinking, man? Is Urban Meyer going to be fired? Is Shad Khan going to be able to let his boy go, or no?
Man, I believe Meyer has to go. With me growing up playing sports my whole life, one thing I always pride myself on was playing for a coach I enjoy playing for. Playing for a coach that he downs you, makes you feel bad. Players hate him. Coaches can't stand him. Someone that's just he's a cancer. And I feel like Meyer, he just crossed the line too many times, calling staff losers, doing all this and that and the third. Like sometimes in sports, yes, players will tolerate to an extent, but again, gets to a point, hey, I understand you're the head coach, but sometimes I'm a grown man. I need my respect. And I feel like he shows no respect to his franchise, to the players, to the people that hired him. And eventually, and then they're 2-11. Of course, it's his first year coaching, but it seems like he just doesn't have the locker room because people just don't want to play for him right now. And then, because watching that game versus the Titans of this past Sunday, didn't shake the coach hand really, looked away from him, walked off, without really giving him a proper handshake, showing no sportsmanship. And Meyer he has to go because he's not a good fit at the pro level. Maybe in college, yes, but at the NFL level with grown men making more money than you, very big grown men that got 3, 4, and 5 kids that have families to feed, you can't act that certain way. And so I feel like Meyer just has to go. It's time to hit the road, Jet. don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. It's over. And so I feel like he has to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, when your rookie quarterback is kind of coming out and questioning some of the decisions you make about, how many reps your best running back is getting, and he's like, no, he needs to be out there, and like he literally, like Trevor Lawrence, granted, I think he was just answering the question honestly, but he's basically like challenging your coaching decisions at that point. When your rookie quarterback is doing that, and by the way, making sense doing it, not really a good look for you as the head coach. Jeff, how you feeling about Urban Meyer down there in Jacksonville, down there in Duval?
Well, this is about Chad Kahn admitting he made a $60 million mistake. Okay, he should never have been hired in the first place. One of the things I said about Urban Meyer is he's a control freak. He is a guy who's used to having it his own way, having everything on his terms. Well, guess what? This is the NFL. You don't control what happens with the futures of these guys. Some of these guys are actually going to trump you because, one, contracts for players are harder to get out of than coaches, and it counts against the salary cap and how your team goes forward. You could fire a coach, and guess what? It doesn't impact your salary cap one bit. So this is a pride thing. Is Chad Kahn willing to say, you know what, I made a mistake. Here's your $60 million and go on your way and we find a real coach? Or is he going to stick by this and hope that somehow this turns around? I don't see it turning around. He's never been that kind of guy. He's not that kind of guy. And it's showing already. And he made the biggest mistake there was. He made that mistake with the bar in the video. He made a mistake of skipping a flight to do that. And it ruined the trust in the locker room, which there was probably trust issues before that. But guess what? That just opened the floodgates because now people had despised you as it was. They didn't think you should have been there. You came in there with all this fanfare. You haven't shown anything special. And guess what? You gave them enough ammunition to wait for the next shoe to drop. Now, because you're a public enemy number one, every little thing you do, if somebody sneezes and you don't say, God bless you, Urban Meyer, guess what? It's coming out in the news because plain and simple now, you have given people the reason to have you fired. And guess what? Every reporter in America is going to be looking for ammunition to put out there to say, hey, Shad Khan, here's more evidence why this guy should not be your coach.
That point about the bar and all that stuff, and I think most players, wouldn't have really minded like his activities, but the fact that you lied to the team, like this is the NFL. Yeah, those guys are making money. They're doing the same thing you are, Urban. Like they're not going to kill you for that. Hell, they'll probably laugh with you about it. Like, hey, you got caught. It happens. We understand, Coach.
Yeah, my lady caught me too.
Right. Right. But when you go and start lying to them, like, oh no, I was visiting family, and it's like, really? That's not what Twitter is saying. Really?
It puts a different spin on the term kissing cousins.
Exactly. I was like, I don't treat my family like that. But anywho, Bill, is Urban going to get the axe this year, or what's going to happen?
Okay, so there's two different things that are being said here. There's what should happen and what will happen. As my friend and colleague Jeff Barnes said, there's 60 million reasons why he may not get the heave-ho quite yet. But here's the other thing. While past is not always predictor of future, the last several coaches that have been in Jacksonville have all failed, but they've all gotten a good long run to demonstrate that they could or couldn't get it done, right? Doug Marrone, how many years? 4. Gus Bradley, how many years? 4. Now, I don't think Urban's going to make it 4 years if this kind of stuff continues, but I don't think he's going to get fired as soon as everyone thinks. So I'm just going to quote the man himself. 2 days ago, Shad Khan said this: I want to do the right thing for the team. I want to do the right thing for the city. That, to me, is way more important than just acting helter-skelter on emotion. I think we all know we have a history of really looking at the facts and then really doing the right thing. Gus Bradley was here 4 years. Doug Marrone was here 4 years. It was wins and losses, and this is a little bit different. But, I'm going to reflect on all that and do what's right for the team and right for the city. Now, at some point, his hand could be forced. But if you're asking me right now today, has Shad Khan decided to fire Urban Meyer? I'm saying the answer right now today is no. Now, with Urban Meyer, it seems like there's always something else coming. So I can't say definitively he won't get fired, but if this stops, if there's no more extra stuff, and this continue to just be a normal bad football team, I don't think that's enough to get him fired. And the other stuff so far isn't enough to get him fired. Now, we could be getting to the point, as once again, my friend and colleague Jeff Barnes said, the next time he puts mustard and ketchup on a hot dog or whatever, right, might be the final straw. But as of today, with what's happened to this point, I think he survives, at least to the end of the year, and I think even probably into the beginning of next season. But next season better be radically better, or I think he does get the bum's rush at some point if he doesn't turn it around.
Yeah, it sounds in that quote like Shad Khan keeps on saying, I want to do what's best for the team. But the way he's talking, what's best for the team would be to move on from Urban Meyer. And it doesn't seem like Shad Khan understands that.
Yeah, well,
not yet.
What he may end up doing is he may end up keeping him. And then what they will do is, he's probably going to say, Urban, let's get a team that you feel you can coach and start one by one eliminating people from that locker room whom he doesn't get along with. So that'll probably happen before
we call
he gets fired.
We call the Chip Kelly process.
Yes, exactly. and he may get fired after that when he starts to get the team that he handpicked and it doesn't win. Then it's okay. But right now, he still considers it that, he's still trying to win over a team that wasn't his when he got there. And that's kind of the thing that he's kind of egging on to you. We're still building this. Well, the problem is he's not only trying to endear himself to a locker room, or at least trying to make them endear themselves to him, is really what's more going on. But the fact of the matter is he is also at the point where he's now getting vengeful with it. You're not bowing down to the almighty Urban Meyer. Now you're going to learn what happens when you don't listen. That works with college kids, doesn't work with the pros anymore. It may have worked back in the days when guys were making $15,000 a year. Not anymore.
Absolutely. Like you said, the problem with that approach might be you want to get rid of everyone who doesn't like Urban Meyer. Okay, you still need enough players to field a team. And you probably won't be able to do that if you get rid of everyone in that locker room who doesn't like Urban Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, we'll see what happens. Hopefully Shad Khan does the right thing. Probably not. It's the Jaguars. Who cares? Next up, second quarter. I'm just kidding. Jacksonville is a beautiful place. Duval, you guys great. Have one of the best stadiums in all of NFL.
I was about to say, I'm like, dang, he just went hard on him. Like, who cares? Who cares with the Jacks?
I have no fun.
No other stadium can you sit in a hot tub and watch the game.
Absolutely. One of the best things about the Jaguars, hands down. All righty. Talking about one bad team, let's go to a team that was playing bad and then really started to come along recently, and it seems like they're all the way back. It looked like the Chiefs finally flipped the switch on both sides of the ball. The defense was terrible in the beginning of the year and have been locked down these past about 6 weeks. The offense has kind of been struggling and just looked like they were stuck in the mud. Not anymore. They completely flipped the switch against the Raiders. Now, again, that's a rivalry game. Raiders, for whatever reason, thought it was a good idea to have a team meeting on the logo and show up and all that other stuff after last year when they took a victory lap around. Again, Raiders, different conversation. But with everything that we've seen these last couple weeks and that performance against the Raiders, are the Chiefs back to being the top dog in the AFC and in the NFL, period? Jeff, we'll start with you.
Well, they never really went away. I think what we saw in the beginning of the season was a team trying to find its new self. The Chiefs that made it to the last 2 Super Bowls had to redefine themselves. Their defense underwent some changes, as we saw. A lot of younger players being plugged in. Those guys are starting to come to form. Some of those guys are also injured. Frank Clark and those guys. Those guys are back, right? So that part of the team has found itself. The offense had to redefine itself. It was no longer as explosive. Yeah, you still have Tyreek Hill. Yeah, you have Travis Kelce. Yeah, you have Edwards-Helaire. But the fact of the matter was there was always another guy on the other side that you somewhat feared whether it was Sammy Watkins, what have you. Well, guess what? Now they don't have that anymore. All right. So what they have now is they have guys that had to find another way to win. And the offense has found a way to win. You saw Mahomes press early in the season when they struggled. Well, guess what? He's comfortable in what they're doing now. Comfortable quarterback like Mahomes is a very dangerous thing. And there are other teams in the league that were started off hot in a different situation. They're in a situation that Kansas City was in. So give them credit. They're one of the hottest teams in the AFC, not named the New England Patriots. That is the rub right there. Which one of those teams is the hottest team and is legitimately the top contender in that conference? Because plain and simple, both of them are hot at the same time, at the right time, going towards the end of the season. Which one is real? Which one is just a hot team going into the playoffs?
It's a good point about them kind of having to figure it out with everything being new. Like you said, like Sammy Watkins is gone. They've kind of always had that other guy that you still kind of had to somewhat respect. Mecole Hardman, good, but you don't fear him. Josh Gordon at this point in his career, good, but you don't fear him. It's a really good point about them kind of having to figure everything out. I am interested to see if this was just, a flash in the pan against the Raiders, or if they'll be able to keep looking like this on offense moving forward. Bill, you're up next. How do we feel about the Kansas City Chiefs? Are they back to being number one in the AFC?
I feel the same way I always felt about it. As you might remember, my preseason prediction for the Super Bowl was the Chiefs and Packers. There was some stubbornness, and I think I used the term stubbornness to describe what was going on previously. There was some stubbornness in the way they were approaching how teams had simply, frankly, made a pretty, I won't say simplistic, but an effective but not super difficult adjustment, right? And soften off, two or two man, either cover two or two man, and just challenging them to run the ball. And they had, for whatever reason, been slow to just say, okay, we're just going to run the ball at you. I still, once again, leaning back to the Super Bowl, I believe that if they've just loaded up, here, we're going to come two tights and two backs and just run at you until you finally play us differently. I still think they either win that Super Bowl, at least make it a very compelling game. They, for whatever reason, they wanted to win their way, right? As opposed to just win, right? Just win, baby. Al Davis just laid it out for you. But they didn't want to win their way, right? They wanted style points. It's like and one mixtape syndrome. I don't just want to, make a pass. I want to bounce it off my knee. And so when finally they kind of got over that a little bit and said, oh, okay, there's other ways to win, and their defense, right? So they had a defense that was a bottom 8 defense until about 4 weeks ago. And it's still not, 85 Bears or 99 Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the, steel curtain of 74. Don't get me wrong. But the last 4 weeks, they've been a top 12 defense, right? And if that continues, and this is sort of a thing that we see every time they've made a run, especially in Super Bowl years, what happens? Their defense goes from being bad to decent to really good. And if that trend continues and the offense just continues to not, it sounds funny saying this, to not make mistakes. How often do we say all the Chiefs defense offense has to do is not make mistakes? But literally, if they don't turn the ball over, if they run the ball, and then Mahomes once or twice a game, not 10 times a game, but once or twice a game does Patrick Mahomes things, they're going to be a team that should frankly win out. Not every single game, perhaps, but they should end up the top dog in the AFC. That's all they have to do. Now, can they be disciplined enough to do it? That's the question.
Yeah, and early on in the year, offensively, you could tell that Mahomes was pressing. That there
with
was
a capital P.
Yeah, like there was a clear effort of like, no, we're trying to like make those big plays because that's what our offense has been these last couple of years. That's what we've kind of been known to do and it just wasn't there. And now I think that it took them a while, but they finally just kind of learned, just take what the defense gives us. Like we have talented players all over the field. We don't have to go, you don't have to shoot the half court shot every time, right? Like take the layup sometimes. It's okay. Right. Joey, we're going to you next. how you feel about Kansas City? Was this them flipping the switch and getting back to form? Is the dynasty back on, so to speak?
I definitely think they flipped the switch. That's for sure. 6-game winning streak right now. I think this was another topic the last time I was on the show as well. And as a guy living in Las Vegas, I get a front row seat to whoever beats the brakes off the Raiders every week. For the last 2 months or so. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think they did. And I think that's what we talked about last time too, was like, hey, are they done for? They're sitting at 4-4, 3-4-ish at this time. I think a few of us out of the 4 were quick to sign them off, but like I think I reserved it a little bit because I was like, if they get it back going, I think they'll be okay. And that's exactly what they did. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now, but their schedule is the rest of the 4 games that they have the rest of the season are all teams above 500. So I don't think they're going to stumble. Obviously, they're pretty red hot right now. The roster is loaded. And shout out to Jeff for sure. I feel like you're reading my notes over here. The defense is playing a lot better. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, healthy Frank Clark is always nice on the edge. The defense is playing a lot better. They're shutting people down. And the entire dynamic of the AFC has completely shifted and turned upside down. Right now, we're talking about the Patriots being back number 1 seed. We're talking about the Chiefs being the number 1 and number 2 seed and best team in the AFC. And those teams are literally, so to speak, left for dead 2 months ago. So yeah, I would definitely say that they're back on the right track. They're definitely a very tough. They're going to be a tough out the rest of the way, if not the number 1 seed. But I think the number 1 seed is going to go to the Patriots just because their schedule is easier as the season wraps up.
Yeah, we did speak about the Chiefs, and it is funny seeing the Chiefs and the Patriots now, as opposed to where they were maybe 6 weeks ago. But I think everyone was like, "Oh, Mac Jones is playing okay," but the Patriots are like 2-4, so they're not really going to do anything. They'll be middle. Like I think everyone was kind of really hoping and praying for the downfall of the Patriots and the evil empire striking again. And same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs. It was, all righty, we just haven't seen them struggle like this before, and we kind of didn't know what to expect from them moving forward. Now, fast forward 6 weeks, they're both looking like 2 of the best teams in the league. Chris, are we back to Chiefs running this show, or you think there's someone else that's a top dog in the AFC?
I feel like the Chiefs were always here. I mean, a slow start of the season, but really watching those games that they lost early in the season, they were beating themselves, like with turning the ball over, like Patrick Mahomes, like throwing the receivers right in their hand. They're dropping the balls, fumbling the balls, beating themselves. So they were always here. It just with certain games, they're turning the ball over, fumbling, just doing uncharacteristic mistakes. And so, of course, the Chiefs, I feel like with every team that wins so much, you got to face adversity. And then having a new team, new players, sometimes things take time. Like I feel like sometimes in life or sports, we expect it to be so fast sometimes. And sometimes things are processed. So I feel like now they find themselves their identity far as that defense. Then the offense, I mean, yes, they've been up and down all season far as the offense, but they've won games. They've been in so many situations throughout the season that has helped them right now. So I do feel like for around playoff time, I do think that the Chiefs offense would get far as that groove with just 30 and 40 points with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, Travis Kelce. See, they've been here. It's just a matter of time of learning how to adapt to a different team. But they've been the best team the whole time. They're here. And I feel like the far as the AFC, I mean, the Patriots are a great team. We shall see what happens. But I feel like in the playoff time, I'm betting my money on KC all day because Patrick Mahomes is still Pat Mahomes. Matt Jones is unproven in the playoffs. We don't know that right now. He hasn't been tested really far as in a tight game where he has to win a game for you. Patrick Mahomes, he's been there and done that. So I do feel like a KC, I do think they're more polished and they like more experience. So I think they'll be fine. So the Chiefs are the big dogs.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of coming to that realization as well, is that the Patriots, obviously, because of Bill Belichick, they're always going to have a shot. But that point about Mac Jones, he's been good, right? But playoffs are a completely different animal. You're going to have to make plays. You're going to have, like, the Patriots are going to have to win a game because Mac Jones, they put it on his arm instead of just trusting the defense and running the ball. So we'll see. Like I said, Kansas City, and the whole point about it being a new team is a really good point too. Like, their offensive line was completely new this year, almost, basically, right? So like, that's a really important part about them getting traction and kind of getting into chemistry, because that's one, like, literally that is the most important part of your offense, is the cohesion between the offensive line. So it seems like it took them a while to kick it into gear, but like I think we all are on the same page. It looks like Kansas City has flipped the switch, and the AFC, granted, this year has already been extremely interesting with how many teams are just still in it at this point. But now it gets even a little more interesting knowing that Kansas City seems to be back to their juggernaut ways. Really good stuff so far, guys. Really good stuff. We're going to take a quick break here, quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back for the third quarter. So sit tight.
The Team Nuts and Bolts Sports Store is officially open. Log on to www.teamnbsmerch.com and get your t-shirts, hoodies, polos, all sizes available. Once again, log on to teamnbsmerch.com. Get yours today.
Alrighty, and we are back. Like I said, really good show so far, guys. You guys have been making some really good points. Randall, liking the lineup. Appreciate it, Randall. Stacked lineup tonight. I agree. We've got some heavy hitters in today. I'm like I said, I was excited about today's episode. Alrighty. That being said, let's go ahead, get into this third quarter. Jeff, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one. We're going to talk about your beloved Cowboys for a little bit. Let's go ahead and get into this third quarter. Alrighty, so a very important game, actually, between the Cowboys and the Washington football team was played. Love the move of bringing your own home benches to the Washington football stadium. Granted, I do think a big part of that is just because that Washington football stadium is not the best. So it'd be nice to have your own heated seats and stuff like that. I get it. But it also is a nice move to just show, hey, we're comfortable here. We're not worried. So I like the trash talk there a little bit, but this was an important game. And early on, it looked like the Cowboys were going to run away with this game. I believe it was 18-0 after like the first quarter.
24-0 at half.
Right. So Micah Parsons, who has been unbelievable, was wreaking havoc. The defense was really holding it down for Dallas. It was kind of the reverse of what we're used to seeing with Dallas. The defense was holding it down. The offense struggled, and Dak Prescott specifically struggled a lot in this game. He actually was a big part of the reason why Washington had a chance to come back at the end through a terrible pick six at the end of the game, really made this game closer than it should have been. These are the type of games, though, that you worry about with the Cowboys, because this type of stuff will slide when you're going up against Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen. It's not going to slide when you're going up against Tom Brady. So how do we feel? Was this game, do you think this is something that the Cowboys will fix, or how do we feel about the Cowboys really moving forward after this performance? And mind you, Dak Prescott has kind of been in a little bit of a slump the last couple of games. how do we feel about the Cowboys moving forward as a contender to win the Super Bowl after these last couple performances? Bill, we'll start with you.
Well, if the NFL was decided by just taking your roster and laying it down in front of the other team's roster, the Cowboys would be very much not just a Super Bowl contender, but maybe even a Super Bowl favorite. You just look at that roster, you're like, wow, man, they got CeeDee Lamb, they got Gallup, they got Zeke, they got Pollard. You know, their tight ends are even halfway decent. Their offensive line isn't quite, you know, at its peak in the best of years a few years ago, but it's still a really good offensive line. Their defense is still kind of an adventure, but it's way better than it's been recently. And they play in, and I'm not trying to be mean, but the NFC East. I mean, that's a factual piece of information. They are in the NFC East, and that certainly paves the way to the playoffs. You know, it's not like you have to climb the highest mountain. You're not climbing Mount Everest. You're, you know, taking a stroll. Now, the problems are, one, they still give up a lot of big plays. Even though the defense has improved, they give up a lot of big plays. And when you get into the playoffs and you're facing, I don't know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers perhaps, or the Packers, the fact that you give up big plays is going to be the end of you. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. They need to become a much more sound defense. They get sacks, a lot of them. They get turnovers, a lot of them. But they also play a lot of teams that are sack prone and turnover prone. The teams that you see in the playoffs will not be quite so sack prone. They'll get the ball out much more quickly, and or their offensive lines will be better. And the other part of that is that they will not be so turnover prone. It won't be quite so easy to turn those teams over as some of the teams they face. So I certainly believe, they're essentially already in the playoffs, right? The issue is what happens when they get there. I think they will win at least a playoff game. I'm not so sure about two.
Okay, so you're giving them a playoff game. I'll be honest. I think it matters who their matchup is in the first round. Depending on who that matchup is, I don't know if the Cowboys win a first round or win a game in the playoffs this year. They'll definitely make it, like I said, with the NFC East. They're definitely going to make it. That game against Washington really was kind of the decider. If Washington would have won that game, it would have been a lot more interesting, and Week 18 would have been really interesting watching that game. But as of right now, it does seem like they'll get in. It's just a matter of what are they going to do once they get there. Joey, we're going to you. How do you feel about the Cowboys moving forward as a contender right now?
Look, I'm not gonna lie, man. I was actually kind of impressed with them the beginning of the season. Hot start, 6-1 start. But now at the beginning, the meat and potatoes of the season, man, like I'm just not really seeing it. Yes, they are gonna win that NFC least. They're up 3 games right now, and their schedule is very easy the rest of the way. They do have a big game against the Cardinals in 2 weeks, and that's going to be a team they may run into in the playoffs. So that's going to give them a gauge, you know what I mean? That's going to let them know, what they're going to be seeing in the playoffs most likely. But let me ask you a question: if they got the playoffs ended right now, they'd be playing the Rams. Would you choose the Cowboys over the Rams right now? I would say no. Would you take the Cowboys over Green Bay or any other teams that are in the playoff hunt right now? Tampa Bay, Arizona? I would say no. So, and that's who they're going to be matched. That's who they're going to be matched up with. They're not going to get a bottom feeding team. They're going to get. They're going to run into somebody who's in second place in a division, and if it's against the West, that could be Arizona or the Rams. So I think Zeke's been a little bit banged up. They're not getting, they're not really getting the ball much to Cooper. Gallup is kind of taking over lately a little bit, which is no big deal. It's a good problem to have. 2 wide receivers, and like Bill mentioned, CeeDee Lamb for sure. But I don't know, man. I'm just not sold. I don't think the division gives them enough problems. We can talk about the Redskins game, the pick 6 to bring it within a touchdown. But Kyle Allen, are you trusting in Kyle Allen and bringing them to come through and beat Dallas? I don't think so, man. Just the division is just still really, really, really bad. And I think it's a portal for them to destroy everybody in the East every year and then get into the playoffs and lose the first game every year. That's how it's going to be until the East gets better.
Yeah, and it's seeming like a common trend to bash their division, which understandable. That division again is not the best. Chris, we're gonna go to you. How do you feel about the Cowboys' chances moving forward as contenders for a Super Bowl, not just making the playoffs?
Like Joey said first, just right now, I think they're the fourth or fifth seed, I believe. They'll play the Rams. I don't think they'll beat the Rams, the Bucks, the Packers, or the Cardinals. And then I'm saying this: if the Cowboys lose, all the blames go to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, he's making $75 million this year, people. $75 million. Dak Prescott, he has not played well. If I'm playing one player that much money, he has to be my best player. He has to step up. Of course, Michael Parsons, that defense playing good. But Dak, it starts with Dak Prescott. And I feel like right now, Dak is showing why he's not that guy when all the chips on the line, because Dak is a good talent. I love Dak Prescott. But Dak is just, he's always hasn't really shown you in the playoffs, can he really put a team on his back and will them? Like, of course, they have a great roster, great receiving core. I mean, Pollard, Elliott, but it starts with Dak Prescott, and he hasn't shown me over the years in the postseason that he really can put a team over the top, because he got his money. Great, you got your money. But now it's time to really play great now. He's not played his best. And I feel like what happens in Dallas, something always happens bad. Meaning they'll probably make the playoffs, but they'll lose probably in the wild card round. I feel like Dallas will win 0 games, because I don't have faith in Dak. And then Ezekiel Elliott, he's been off for the past couple of weeks because he's hurt. And Pollard's out. So I feel like right now, they need Dak more than ever right now, because he has to play his best. And I feel like with Dak Prescott not being Dak Prescott, Dallas has no shot, and they would not make a deep playoff run. And it seems like every single year is the same question. What about Dallas? What about Dallas? What about Dallas? What about them? They always drop the ball every single year. They cannot win a big game when it really matters. That's who the Cowboys are and always will be. Call it how I see it. I love Dak as a person, great person, nice, friendly character guy. But on the field, when it really matters, Dak Prescott is not that guy. And he is not worth $75 million, in my opinion. So, no, Dallas is not that team.
All right. Some heavy words. I do agree, Dak, you got the contract. You have to play better, and Dak has not. He started off the season very, very good. He started off phenomenal. Now, down the stretch, he has started to flutter. Jeff, you want to defend your team here, or are you kind of feeling the same vibe as everyone else?
I'm going to speak the plain truth, whether it's my team or not. Fact of the matter is, are they a contender? Yes, and I'm going to tell you why they're a contender. All right? Plain and simple. We've seen who they were at the beginning of the season. We've seen who they are the last few weeks. At the beginning of the season, we talked about it. When they were winning, they were 6-1. We kept saying, well, the defense just has to play marginally, but the offense is what's going to carry this team. Well, guess what? Dak got hurt. A couple of Amari Cooper got COVID. CeeDee Lamb had a concussion. All of a sudden, he played a couple of games. When he came back without those guys, it wasn't the same. The offense wasn't the same. You're back. Of course, Zeke Elliott's been battling this knee injury that I think is worse than people are letting on. Okay, the offensive line struggles on the interior. Where's most of the teams that have given them struggles this year? Kansas City, Washington, all those teams are strong on the inside. Guess what? They've been switching out their left guard because they don't like to play at their left guard. Their tackles. So where's Tyron Smith this week? He's out again because his left guard, who's been playing subpar, fell into his ankle and put him out again. So they've had their issues on the offense. It's struggling now. Dak is struggling because of all of this. Okay, he's got to find his confidence. He's got to find a way. You know, they say, "Oh, Dak played poorly." Well, most quarterbacks play poorly when you get 13 quarterback pressures and 4 sacks. So, yes, he's had his issues, and that interception was bad. There's no sugarcoating it. It is what it is, okay? But guess what? That defense is getting better. That pass rush is improved. It's no longer just Micah Parsons doing it all on his own, coming from 50 angles. Now you have Randy Gregory back, who's played very well this year when he's been out there. And you finally got DeMarcus Lawrence back after just playing in one game. And it showed in one game against Washington. They were up 24-0. They went up 27-0. Okay, and you got to put some of that on the coaches as well. Because guess what? It was them that decided to pull a defense out in the second half and let Washington drive the field. It was also the coaches who decided to say, you know what, let's not run the ball. Let's try and get one over and play action and put our quarterback in that situation. So, yeah, the coaches deserve some of that hate too. But guess what? You want to look at it, look at the top of the teams in the conference. Green Bay is not exactly unbeatable. They've been very shaky, and they've been lucky the fact that Aaron Rodgers has saved their behind on numerous occasions this season. Guess what? Arizona's showing you they are very shaky. So that's another team you got to watch out for. And Tampa Bay just came off a swoon, and they are not out of the woods yet. Then guess what? That team that we're all talking about is done. May end up your number one seed in the playoffs if things keep going the way they're going. Now, as far as the rest of those teams in the conference, will they play? If they play the Rams, can they beat the Rams? Yes. Well, we just seen the Rams finally get off a 3 or 4 game losing streak. The Rams are very beatable. The Niners are very beatable. And guess what? That team, if Washington sneaks in as the 7th seed, they're very beatable. Oh, no. How about Minnesota? If Minnesota gets in, can they beat Dallas? Well, Dallas beat them without Dak. So Dallas is very real and very in play. So, yes, they are down offensively. Yes, they are looking shaky as a top seed. And guess what? They are still capable of winning it all.
A very convincing argument. It is fair to give context though. Like Dak isn't playing well, but they've also been dealing with injuries. I do agree with you about Ezekiel Elliott's injury being a little bit more serious than they're letting on. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, sit him, rest him. You're going to need him for the playoffs when it matters, right? Like we just saw the Cardinals, who we're actually going to talk about in this fourth quarter. The Cardinals just did that with DeAndre Hopkins. He has a knee injury. They said, hey, you're done for the rest of the regular season. We'll see you in the playoffs. For the Cowboys, I kind of haven't understood why they're doing that with Zeke. Like you have Tony Pollard, who early on in the season was like on pace to rush for 1,000 yards himself. Let Zeke get healthy. Let some of these guys get healthy. You're going to make it into the playoffs, right? I understand momentum, but having guys healthy and ready for those games is way more important than anything else. Like I said, really good argument, really convincing. Maybe Dallas isn't such a lost cause. We'll see. All righty. Well, like I said, I teased it a little bit there, talking about the Arizona Cardinals and the Rams. Let's go ahead and get into it. Throw up your fours because it's time for the fourth quarter. Alrighty, so really good game between the Rams and Cardinals. Two teams that I've been really interested in, really excited about watching them play this year. I was high on the Arizona Cardinals last year. It seemed like I was a year early on that bandwagon, but they seem to have finally put it together this year. I thought the Rams acquiring Matthew Stafford and obviously Von Miller, Odell Beckham, like the Rams seemed like a team that were primed to really make that push. And this was a big game for both of them. Obviously, the Rams, as Jeff mentioned last segment, were on a 3-game losing skid. They beat Jacksonville the week prior, but who doesn't beat Jacksonville? And then you have the Cardinals, who have been playing well this year and have beaten some good teams, but we all still kind of remember what they were last year, about can you all is this again, is this a flash in the pan? Is this just, an illusion, or are you guys for real? They also were trying to fight to keep that number 1 seed in the NFC. Obviously, we know now that the Rams pulled that game out and got a win. I kind of felt like that was a game that the Rams were going to right the ship. But walking away from that game and how everything kind of played out, how do we feel about each team moving forward? I feel like this is a really telling game for both parties. How do we feel about each team moving forward? Chris, we'll start with you.
I feel like with the Cardinals, man, they've had a great season so far. I think they're 10-3, now 3rd in the NFC. They had a good season, great season. But I will say this though, when the two big games that I've seen versus the Packers and the Rams, home they lost. Green Bay was shorthanded, beat them on a short week, and then the Rams beat them. I watched those games with Kyler Murray, certain plays, and the head coach. I've seen a lot of shaky, poor decision making because on Monday Night Football, they gave us a couple of points with poor decision making, going forward on 4th and 1. I felt like with some decision making, they dropped the ball, and then Kyler Murray missing throws sometimes, not playing his best, turning the ball over, not playing like an MVP type quarterback in certain moments of the game. Then with the Rams, all season the Rams had a good season so far, 9-4, put a good record. But I felt like until Monday, they didn't really beat an elite team. Yes, they did beat Tampa, but that was week 3. And that was a long time ago. Tampa's way better now. I felt like when the Rams beat the Cardinals, they kind of showed me something that, hey, okay, this team can beat someone elite. They can play better. Matthew Stafford can be great in certain moments. So I feel like my ceiling's higher with the Rams because I feel like they have that defense. And then I feel like when they're healthy, they are a scary football team. The Cardinals, they do lack experience. They have not been to the playoffs in a long time. And so they have to prove to me, like now in these a couple of weeks coming, can they get some big wins? Because they haven't really proven nothing yet because they're trying to learn how to win still. But I do feel like the Rams have a higher ceiling for those two teams. But, I mean, I do think the Cardinals are a very good football team, but it seems like to me, just in important situations of the game, they still are showing me they're unexperienced. So I don't think if they go to the playoffs, they'll probably win in one game and be out in the second round. But the Rams, I feel like they can make a deep playoff run. Depends on who they play and how the matchups are. So my ceiling is higher for the Rams than the Cardinals.
Yeah, I agree with the Rams assessment. The Rams were my, preseason pick to make it to the Super Bowl. I had Chiefs and Rams. I really like what this team was doing. Poor Arizona Cardinals. Like game like this against the Rams, you kind of really have to win it. And now you lose that one game, and now it kind of feels like everyone's getting ready to just kind of, undermine this great season that you are having. Also, that game against the Packers for the Cardinals, if AJ Green, for whatever reason, if AJ Green remembers that it's a pass play instead of a run play, they probably win that game, right? So,
you know what I'm saying? Like situations like that, they just mess up, and I feel like they lack experience. So I think sometimes being a team, learning how to win matters over time. Being there matters, and learning in certain situations, and they're still learning, in my opinion, like learning right now.
Absolutely, I think I can agree with that. Jeff, you're next. How do we feel about each team after this Monday night game?
All right, so we finally seen the potential that this Rams team have, despite they were still missing a couple of players, right? We saw that we know they're explosive. Adding Beckham now, he's in synergy with Stafford, so they're starting to get a rapport going. He's starting to make a difference, big help, especially with Woods gone for the year. So you're starting to see the Rams and saying, okay, they're looking like the team that we hoped they would, not the team that lost those 3 games. So we're starting to see the Rams in that light that we were hoping to see. The Cardinals, like I said, they're one of those teams who were hot early, but you saw the chinks in the armor early. They barely beat Minnesota because Minnesota misses a field goal. They had plenty of other games. They were in a dogfight with Jacksonville at one point in the season. So they're a team who, despite the fact they had some early wins, showed you that they were very, very beatable. Green Bay went in there without their receivers and still beat them. Okay, so you're getting down to the back end of the season. They have a 1-game lead now because of their loss to the Rams. They've split the series with the Rams, so it's going to come down to other factors. I think they may hold off the Rams for the division because the Rams have one more nemesis on their schedule who, plain and simple, they just can't seem to beat, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. So I think that game, if they do drop that game to the Niners again, it's going to help the Cardinals win the division, go into the playoffs as a top 4 seed. Now, they have to play Dallas again. And Arizona has to play Dallas, so that's going to be a big matchup for both of those teams. Playoff seeding is going to, see what happens going forward with those two teams. But overall, I think when you look at it, Arizona is going to be a good team. Will they get into the playoffs and make that big noise? I don't think they're going to make that big noise that everybody made them out to be. I think they'll be a good team, play some nice, meaningful, exciting football in the playoffs. They're going to eventually get bumped out by somebody who should bump them out. The question is, what do the Rams do when they get in? Do they get in and go on their road and take out people on the road on their way to the Super Bowl? Or do they go in, get a win here too, or they go out as well? Overall, they're going to have some teams in the playoffs who they can beat, but guess what? Can send them home very easily.
Yeah, again, it's funny how quickly like one game can mean so much for both teams, especially division games like that. I agree with you that I think Arizona will hold them off, but I think I do feel a little bit more confident in the Rams moving forward than I do Arizona.
Very understandable.
Yeah. Bill, you're up next. What were your takeaways from this game? How do we feel about each team moving forward?
I feel exactly the same about both teams as I did before. Here's what we know about both teams. We know that the Rams have mortgaged, it's very much Back to the Future, have mortgaged their future for their now, right? I'm the only one old enough to remember George Allen as a coach, obviously, probably, I guess. But he was famous for coaching the Over the Hill gang, right? The Over the Hill gang Washington team to the Super Bowl, in fact, 72, where they got not so humanely destroyed, I guess, by the perfect Dolphins of Don Shula. I think there were like 4 players or 5 on that roster who were draftees. I'm not even joking. Look it up. It was a team built of like guys he traded for and cast-offs and all kinds of stuff. And it was an old team, or old by that era standards. Average age of about 29, I think. But this team is somewhat similarly constructed. It's one of the older teams in the NFL. It's one of the more expensive teams in the NFL. They are built to win right now. They have basically a 2-year window. They need to get a win this year, next year, maybe even the year after that. And then they got to start all over again. In the Cardinals, it's still a team that's, on the ascend, I believe. But as virtually everyone has pointed out, you can see it, right? You can see it when it's the first time. Hey, we all treasure our first time, right? It's a special time. But you're nervous. You're fumbling around. You're not sure where everything is or how everything works when it's your first time, right? So you can see that sometimes with the Cardinals. It's their first time. They're still trying to figure out how it all works. And how do you do this exactly, right? And when you run into Aaron Charles Rodgers, when you run into some of these other teams that clearly, have a better idea of how all this stuff works. The good news for them is that they are not in a terrible situation where they have to reboot their team in a year or two. Their quarterback is still on his rookie deal. They have a lot of things that make you feel good about this team's future. A lot of their best players are 23, 24, 25. Obviously, they have a couple of sprinkling of older players, right? J.J. Watt, has come there to sort of enjoy a gentlemanly semi-retirement almost. Part-time player, but still effective. They got to, restructure some things with a couple of the other guys they want to keep. But for the most part, it's a young team, right? The heart of the team. Hopkins obviously is a slightly older player, and he came, obviously from outside. But most of that team is built for the draft, and most of that team is still on their rookie deals. So they have a decent-sized window, but they're not quite ready yet, and you can see it.
I do like the point that these are two teams that are built very differently. You know, how the Rams kind of do have that sense of urgency, whereas the Cardinals, it's like, hey, we're figuring this out. We're taking our time. Like, we have time to figure this out. Whereas the Rams, very good point, we got like 2 years to win this. Now, if you win a Super Bowl, no one cares about the next couple years because, hey, we won a Super Bowl. It worked. Now we're retooling and all that. But with everything that they've mortgaged, you better win one. And I think that they do kind of get that sense. And that's how they're going to approach it moving forward. Joey, we finish off with you. What's your biggest takeaways from this game? How do you feel about each team moving forward?
Did I leak my notes? Because you guys have been smashing on all my notes today. But like, no, I agree with all four of you and everything you said. And so I've been at least just a believer. Like, I like watching the Cardinals, right? Like, I feel like, Bill, said it the best with the youth and a lot of young talent, a lot of homegrown talent, right? Like all the hits in the draft. I wasn't sure about Cliff Kingsbury, but he's showing at least he can get the job done. But you know what these dudes remind me of? Actually, hold on, let me pause that. What I'm waiting for is a big Cardinals win. We're not getting it. To show them that goes over the hump, right? They're here, they're putting up 40 points, they're beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, right? They're not beating the big dogs, though. They're not. They have 2 quality wins this year. So do the Rams, but they're literally one on each other, right? They've split this year. I'm waiting. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. 10-3, cool, nice record, bro. When are you gonna beat somebody that's worth mentioning where you're like, there we go? That's a quality win. That's a good win at home. I don't care about not turning your head for the touchdown. AJ Green, he's a veteran. I get it. I'm saying that, like, you know what? They could have done a lot better job in the other 3 quarters of the game to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. They could very, very easily be the number 1 seed in the league right now, but they're not. So what that kind of really reminds me of, like a college, like an old school perennial power like Notre Dame, where you're like, here they are. They're getting all this talent, great draft, boom, putting up big points. But then when they play somebody that they at least need to get over the bump on, they don't win. They don't beat them. So great year last year for the Cardinals, and then, sputtered in the playoffs. Now this year again, they're 10-3. We're kind of talking about them a lot. And here you are, you're like, man, they got to beat the Rams. You got to take care of these quality opponents, and they're not doing it. So with all that being said, I just can't trust them. I can't trust them. So like, I'm waiting. I'm just waiting for the big reveal on who they are and what they can do when it matters the most. Because if they would have taken care of business with the Rams, that would have done it. If they would have taken care of business with the Packers, that maybe would have at least done it. And then you could, they could have, had a misstep here and there in the rest of the season, but they just haven't beaten anybody yet. So I'm just waiting for that. Over to the Rams, they beat the Bucks and the Cardinals. Those are their quality wins too. So I don't have to really double tap what everybody else said. They're an extremely talented group. You're not going to want to run into them in the playoffs, I don't think, because I think they're going to just they're going to start gelling every week better and better and better. And they're going to start getting, Odell Beckham involved more. He's already pretty much involved, big plays. He's got the home run. He's got the home run threat. So that's not a lot of fun to play defense against. And so the Rams have they got a big game, and the Cardinals got a big game. So like each one of them, I think the Rams have 2 teams versus over 500. So they have kind of like the harder rest of the way, but the Cardinals kind of have an easy out. They've got 1 quality opponent out of 4 the rest of the year. So it's on them, man. Honestly, like there's really not much to talk about. Are you who we kind of want you to be, right? We want the Cardinals to be great, but you're right. They're very young coaching staff, very young roster, but they're building blocks, kind of like a college football team. They're improving every single year, but just to wrap it all up, I can't trust them. So I wouldn't be putting any money on them beating anybody that's probably better than them at this point.
Joey gave us his version of they are who we thought they were.
Yes, the Cardinals are we thought they were.
But no, I think they're all really good points, and I agree with you about the Cardinals, where like you want them to play well, right? Like, because I do. I love watching this team because they're a very fun team to watch. The way they play, the explosive plays, Kyler Murray and his just some of the ridiculous plays that only he can make. And it seems like they are kind of figuring out bit by bit, like that defense I think is taking a step forward this year. They paid Budda Baker, which is great. They finally figured out how to use Isaiah Simmons, which they did not know how to do at all last year. Now they finally do, and it's starting to pay dividends. So I'll ask you guys this just real quickly. And granted, we're saying this just a couple days after we saw them play, so our opinions might be a little skewed. If these two teams meet in the playoffs, who do you trust?
It would be the proverbial rubber match. We've seen Arizona dominate the Rams the first time around. We've seen the Rams come back and show they were a different team the second time around. Which one do you trust more? Which one do you think exposed the other for who they really are is the real question. I mean, when I look at it, I think the Rams are, like I said, if they can get consistent, they're the better team to me. Like I said, Arizona won early. They did a great job of doing that, and I think they also see who they are. Granted, the loss at wide receiver is going to hurt them for the rest of the regular season. I think that's going to come into play these last couple of games as they're fighting it out to keep the Rams off their back for the division. But if they meet in the playoffs, I think overall, I would give that edge to the Rams. I really would. And I think just because granted, we've seen all the additions that the Cardinals made this year, and some of those guys are old, so they better win with those guys this year or next year, or they're going too, But I just don't see playoff time. If the Rams are playing their best football, that Arizona beats them. I don't. And I like the fact they did finally figure out how to use Isaiah Simmons. If they could only do that with Zaven Collins.
they get it figured out in the second year. The rookie year, not so much. Second year, though. So they'll know how to use it next year.
Vance Joseph.
Anyone else?
Right.
Anyone else who if these two teams meet in the playoffs, who would pick it?
If these two teams meet again, I truly believe that the team that has a better view of exactly what they are as a team wins it. And as of now, the Rams seem to have a better sense of what they are as a team. On offense, the Rams are all that classic McVay stuff, right? All the stuff he did before, even before he had Matt Stafford, with now he's adding in those deep, right? Those deep outbreaking cuts, those really deep super deep corner routes, right? Hey, I could drop a 46-yard corner route and we could do it, right? I mean, these were things you didn't do before because I'm not going to say Goff couldn't make the throw, because he would have to put more air under it, there was more chance of it being intercepted. Now, he can throw the ball 46, 47, 48, 52, 61 yards, 5.5 feet off the ground, right? And it gets there, and sticks you in the chest. So he's now able to put his whole offense in. Their defense, while it's not dominant, Jalen Ramsey is still there, right? I mean, they still have Aaron Donald. When the chips are on the table, what have we seen about Aaron Donald? When the chips are on the table, what have we noticed, right? When the play has to be made, he makes the play. And as good as the Cardinals are, who's the player you can point to on defense? You say, Budda Baker's great. I love Budda Baker, right? He's basically a younger and slightly less expensive version of Tyrann Mathieu. Mm-hmm. But is he a guy that when the game is on the line, do you know he's going to make the play? Is there a guy that you would bet your house, your car, right, 3 months' salary, something that matters to you, on a single player on that defense? That's a good defense, but a single guy who's going to take over the game, who's going to shut the other team down when it's all on the line. I know that the Rams have that player. I'm not quite sure. And I love Chandler Jones. I mean, Chandler Jones is on his way probably to a Hall of Fame career, quietly. One of the most quiet Hall of Fame pass rushing careers I've ever seen, up there with like Leslie O'Neal. Well, if you're older, you may remember who that is. Look him up, kids. But you got to go back to somebody like Neil Smith or Leslie O'Neal for somebody who's had a Hall of Fame level pass rushing career as quietly as this one. But do I count on him in that moment to make that play the same way I would count on Aaron Donald or I'd count on Jalen Ramsey? If I need you to take away the other team's best receiver in this play where it's all on the line, I'm going to put Jalen Ramsey on the guy and leave him alone, right? No help. There's nobody I can quite say that about in my heart, in my opinion, on the Cardinals team. I think the offenses are roughly, a wash. But I just look at those two studs on defense, and I believe them.
Okay. Joey, Chris. If these two teams meet in the playoff, who do you got winning?
I would say the Rams.
Oh my God! Go ahead, Chris.
I would say the Rams, just because I just feel like they're a better football team, and I think they'll find their identity. I feel like getting all those pieces, new pieces, takes time. So I think they're coming around. And I do think that last year, getting that experience, losing to Green Bay, they'll be stronger from that this playoff run. So I do think the Rams are a better football team, better coach as well. And Sean McVay is a really good coach. So I do think, and Matthew Stafford having something to prove too means something as well. So I do think the Rams are a better football team than the Cardinals, in my opinion.
Joey?
I think 4 weeks from now, we're at least the playoffs. I think it'll be health. I think the COVID stuff will be, well, at this point, right? We can't predict, but I think they'll get Darrell Henderson back. They'll get ODB, Beckham back and all that kind of stuff. And the Cardinals are going backwards in health, right? Yeah, sure, they'll have Hopkins back, but he's going to miss 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever. We're talking about, fitness, cardio, and all that kind of stuff. I just think, when you're tilting the needle, it goes towards the Rams, man. It just is what it is.
All right. I think we all agree. I think I would pick the Rams, but I would like to see a third match between these two teams. I'll say that. But that is all the time we have for you all. And with that being the fourth quarter, that means it's time to announce a winner. Alrighty. So as I said, I was really excited for this panel. You guys absolutely delivered really good stuff from everyone, but there can only be one winner. So it's time that we send some people to the back. First up, going to the back today, we are going to say goodbye to Mr. Bill Carroll today. A great performance. Like I said, we love having you on, but you, sir, will be sent to the back. Thank you so much for your performance. And now we have 3. We got to send 2 more people to the back. Who am I going to send to the back next? Chris, you did some singing for us earlier, and I did enjoy it, but it wasn't enough to get you a win, so we're going to send you to the back as well. And then there were 2, Jeff and Joey.
Ball guys.
I might be joining you guys in like 5 years, so I won't talk too much trash. But again, great performances from both of you guys. Joey, you were good. Jeff, you were great. The win today is going to go to Mr. Jeff Barnes. Joey, great performance. Like I said, you maybe they did leak. Maybe your notes did get leaked out, but you had some really great notes. You had some great notes, man. You had some good notes.
Can't beat the pro, man. I'm like the Cardinals. I can't beat the best. I can't get them.
But we're gonna say hasta luego to Mr. Joey and Mr. Jeff Barnes. You are the winner. congrats to you. The
She
FaceTime is all yours. FaceTime is yours. You deserve it. Enjoy.
Well, it's glad to be home, but I'm going to tell you what, Dom, bring everybody back. Bring everybody back. Bring everybody back in. Let's bring everybody back in here, because you know what? I'm in a generous mood, you know, and as much as I like being in the limelight, I want to share FaceTime with everybody. So why don't we all just talk about this topic? This is going to be my FaceTime. We're all going to talk about this topic. Which one of these three teams is going to look different in the next 3 years? Is it going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Giants, or the Las Vegas Raiders, since we don't know what leadership is there? So, I mean, honestly, let's talk about that for my FaceTime.
Huh.
Okay.
That's a good one. I mean, the real answer is all
no prep.
Who's going?
The Jaguars are still a fairly young roster.
Go ahead.
Fairly young roster, but Shad Khan, and you should, if you get a chance, read the full interview Shad Khan gave, made it very clear that the general manager and Urban Meyer are essentially tied together, right? So he sort of made it like a suicide pact for them. So somewhere their general manager calling Urban like, Herbs, chill out, dude. Like, you're about to cost me my job too. You know, come on, man. You know, help a brother out. So that's going to be interesting, because if indeed Urban Meyer does get shown the door, I think he gets one more year, but if he does get shown the door, that means the front office is going with it, right? So that means everything's going to change. I mean, whoever comes in is going to likely have a different philosophy, obviously a different coach. They may want to run a different defense, a different offense. They'll probably hold on to, obviously, they have a talented young quarterback on a rookie deal. I'm sure he'll, stay. But almost everybody else, you know what I mean? Like, nobody else is guaranteed a spot. One guy is guaranteed a spot on that whole entire 52-man roster. One dude. That's that. So they could be dramatic changes there. You also mentioned the Giants. Oh boy. So many things. Well, Gettleman is another guy who. I mean, let's just be honest. No, let's be honest. We all said, "What are you doing?" When he spent very high draft picks on some of the more, I'll be kind, fungible positions, right? Positions where you maybe don't need to spend top of the draft picks. Let's just be kind about it. Let's not go too deep into it. But yes, there were some picks where we were all thought to ourselves, wait, you're taking that position there? And, there's a meme that says, from what do you call it? From not basketball. What's the one of dodgeball, right? Hey, that's a
bold move, Cotton. It's a bold move, Cotton.
Let's see if it pays off for, right? That was the exact moment we were all thinking. Now that's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for. Well, it hasn't. It has not paid off for him.
That's right.
He frankly should be shown the door. They also are a very patient franchise. The Giants are one of those franchises that likes to give everybody a chance to blow it up. I mean, like, they give you one more chance. They give you one more chance, and then sometimes one more chance after the one more chance. I would fire Joe Judge this year. I would. I don't think they will, though. I think he gets one more year. Should he? I don't think so, but I think he will. And then the third one was who again, Jeff?
The Raiders.
The Raiders.
Oh, the Raiders are fascinating. Oh, the books that could be written about them. They have an owner who is very attached to the team's past. I think would be a fair way to put it. In the past, they've hired and rehired, in some cases, coaches that have, like, if there's ever a team that would hire one of their coaches they fired before, I mean, it's the Raiders. Like, that's a team. Jack Del Rio, sure, why not? I mean, like, if there's, you know what I mean? Like, if there's a team, Hugh Jackson, whatever. If there's a team that would rehire one of their failed coaches, is Art Shell doing anything? Like, it would be the Raiders. The Raiders love digging back, looking backwards, right, as opposed to looking forward. I don't know exactly why. Well, I do know why, right? It's the son of the late, great Al Davis, and he's trying to recreate things that can't be recreated. I appreciate that. I also had a father I respected and loved and looked up to, who is now, gone to his great reward. But the difference is that I'm moving forward, you see. I'm not trying to bring back the 70s or the 80s or any of that. So the Raiders are in an interesting situation because they're not bad enough to just blow everything up, right? I mean, you look at that team and you say, well, they've got good pieces here. They've got a really interesting young pass rusher in Max Crosby. If they can figure out the other pass rusher, they'd be a dangerous front line. Mm-hmm. They spent some early picks on their secondary, and
well, here's the interesting part about that, Bill. Right? Who says the next coach wants to keep Derek Carr?
I hope you mean Derek Carr. Yeah,
Derek Carr. Yes, I mean, that's part of the issue, right?
Well, Derek Carr is the guy that everybody wants to replace, but replace him with, what? I mean, like, you're not going to get a pick at the top of the draft, right? You're picking in the middle of the draft, and you don't have goo gobs of cap space. So how exactly are you replacing this top 12 quarterback? How are you doing it? Exactly. I'd love to hear that, because everyone wants to get rid of him, but nobody has a plan to replace
him. So I mean, that's one of the things why I said the Raiders is because of that. We know they're in flux with the head coach. We know that Mike Mayock is the GM, but you know what? Whoever the head coach is may come in with the same carte blanche that the last head coach came in that says you have a lot of say in personnel. If that's the case, he says, as much as I like Carr, he's worth more tradable. That's going to be a thing that blows that whole situation.
And that's the question. What exactly is the trade market for him?
Yeah.
I'll just throw a team out there. Do the Steelers say it's worth it to trade? Well, what would they trade for him? I mean, they're another team that is not quite bad enough to have a lot of early draft picks. But, I mean, are they willing to give up, say, a second or a third this year and a second next year and a player? Maybe they are willing to do that. And maybe the Raiders are willing to do that, because the Steelers desperately need a quarterback who can, one, move around a little bit. I'm not saying you got to be Lamar Jackson, but a little bit, right? A little bit. Slide this way, slide that way, maybe run for 8 yards every now and again. And Carr's a really good athlete, and he has a really strong arm, which people don't realize how strong his arm is. I don't know why, but if you look at adjusted yards per attempt, if you look at completions over 25 yards, he's near the top this year, people. Look it up. I'm not just joking. But for whatever reason, people don't realize how good he is. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he plays in, Las Vegas is not a place that's off the beaten path. But he's a better quarterback than people realize. But he's playing essentially in flux, as was mentioned by Jeff Barnes. I mean, there's a real sense that nobody knows who's in charge of certain things. That'll be interesting. And if Mike Mayock wins the battle, right, climbs to the top, like he survives, right, because it's going to be some, stabbings and shootings and whatever. I mean, metaphorically speaking. But if he survives, metaphorically speaking, but if he survives and climbs his way to the top and he becomes the voice, then, one, I think they don't blow it all up. I think he says, I'm going to fix some of the mistakes that we made, because he's a stand-up guy. He won't call out which picks were definitely Gruden's and which picks were his, because he's a stand-up guy. But I know things from people who know things. But suffice to say, he's a stand-up guy. And he won't throw Gruden under the bus, even though Gruden's not there anymore. But I think you will see their drafting improve if he gets a chance to keep running it. But I think he also will still be a little too wedded to like his kind of guys too. I hope that he starts to at least a little bit embrace analytics, a little bit. I'm not saying you got to be like strapped to a computer, but everyone else is doing it, Mike. Give it a chance. Try it.
So, of the teams, the one that I feel will look the most different, but look the most different in a good way, is the Giants. I look at the Giants, and I think a lot of people don't recognize there's a lot of talent on this Giants team. Like, you have Saquon Barkley, you have Kenny Golladay, you have Kadarius Toney, you have Darius Slayton, you have Sterling Shepard, you have Evan Ingram, you have Kyle Rudolph. Like, there's a ton of talent on that offense. The offensive line isn't good, and Daniel Jones isn't good either. But here's the good news.
The defensive line isn't great either.
Right. But here's the good news. I know the Giants in the past have been a team that gives, they're a little, you get a longer leash, they don't like to yank it away real quick, right? However, Mara has come out and talked very openly about him being tired of having to answer questions about why the Giants suck every time he's in his billionaire boy club, right? So I think Joe Judge is done. I think Gettleman is done. New offensive coordinator is coming. And I think a new quarterback is coming. And I think that all happens next year. I think this team is going to look very different. And I think whoever that quarterback is, whether they draft someone, who knows? Maybe they get Russell Wilson. You got a couple first-round picks. Maybe you can send Daniel Jones over to Seattle. Maybe they bite on that. Who knows? But the Giants, I think, are the team that will look much different, but much different for the better. I think some of these other teams, granted, Jaguars are kind of at rock bottom right now, so you kind of only have up, right? Like you can't go anywhere but up from here. But I think they're the ones who have the best chance of looking different in a good way moving forward.
There you go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Especially they're the ones with the solidarity at head coach position compared to the other two at this moment. Talking right now, right? But no, I think the easiest ship to right is definitely the Raiders. All they need is a head coach, man. Like it was going good, right? It's not like the evidence isn't there. It was going all right. I know the draft has been like hot and cold with them the last 2 years because they've hit a home run with a couple dudes. And then they've also just been like crushed in other areas. Obviously, I mean the situation with Henry Ruggs is just absolutely horrible. And but like that's a big future loss. That might not have been a loss this year, but that's a big future moving forward loss, right? So whoever takes the reins on the Raiders, man, the cupboard is full. You know what I mean? Like it's ready to go. It just needs to be led correctly. It needs to be built correctly. And all them fools need to get on the damn same page, like you said, Bill.
I said a couple of weeks ago on this show that the Giants, they got a shot at getting Russell Wilson because they have a really good football team, in my opinion. They got a great roster, Saquon Barkley. They have everything except a quarterback because Daniel Jones is not it. He is not the quarterback. I feel like with a guy like Russell Wilson, get somebody like him in New York with a good supporting cast around him, I feel like his Giants team could make some serious noise. Now, you said the Giants, the Raiders, and who else you said?
Jaguars.
The Jaguars. I feel like the Jaguars, they have the franchise quarterback. They just got to get rid of the coach because the coach can't relate to the players, and he's just a headache, someone people don't like. So I feel like Jacksonville should get rid of Urban Meyer. I feel like get a head coach that people really want to be around and want to learn from and have that atmosphere that draws people, and I feel like Meyer does not that job. So I feel like he should go. So I feel like Jacksonville, they'll look different next couple of years. And with the Raiders, man, I feel like they got a good shot at. They need a quarterback too because I mean Derek Carr, he puts up good numbers, but I feel like just he's not that guy in my opinion. I just don't really have faith in Derek Carr. I seen like for example, past Sunday, big game versus the Chiefs, dropped the ball for a 48-9, didn't do anything, and I feel like he's not the answer long term because I feel like you've been there 8 years. They ain't won nothing yet with him, so why keep him? Because he's not gonna win anything. And I think that they need a fresh start or a new quarterback or a new coach or something. of course, John Gruden is gone, but like a new head coach. So we shall see what happens. But I feel like the Giants, they have the best situation out of those three teams.
I'll take Derek Carr in Pittsburgh.
Well, that's but that is why I threw it out there.
I saw you shaking your head. I was like, no doubt.
That's why I threw it out there with the Raiders, because the Raiders, I'm telling you right now, that's one situation that we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who the next head coach is going to be. And honestly, we've proven one thing with the Raiders, that a lot of things will change around that organization before Mark Davis changes his haircut. Okay, so I'm telling you right now, I think that's a very fluid situation. It depends on the guy that comes in there is how that's going to look. And there's going to be teams that'll say, well, if you're not really married, because that's what happens when a new regime comes in, you're not married to the roster. If you're not really married to Derek Carr, we're willing to give you this for him. And don't be surprised if those terms are agreed to. You can't rule it out.
Absolutely. Hopefully it's Pittsburgh. Hopefully. But all righty. Well, guys, this was a ton of fun. Super love having you guys on. Like I said, you guys make my job easy. I just get up. I get to sit here, ask a couple questions, and great arguments. I crack jokes. I have the easy job. Like I said, the show, you guys are the ones that makes the show. So thank you all so much. Jeff, you are our winner. Let the people know what you got going on and where they can follow you at.
Well, we're running the scouting gambit right now, but we will be back in February, as the promo says, with more MBS Draft Central. Been talking to a lot of young men on the scouting trail, so we're going to give a lot of great guests for the show this year, a lot of great content. We're trying to get something done before the bowl games. Bill has been pushing me, and I'm trying to make sure I'm available. So there's more coming from that, but just stay tuned on the social media. Once everything's set, we'll be putting it out there.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining the show. Like I said, honor to have you on. Thank you once again, and congrats on the win. All righty. Mr. Bill Carroll, why don't you go ahead and let the people know what you got going on, where they can follow you at, all that good stuff.
So I am going to be working on an article on what's happening now in the HBCU recruiting worlds, both in terms of some transfers, big-time transfers that are making their way to HBCUs from Power 5 programs. And, of course, obviously, the thing that broke Twitter practically, or almost broke Twitter earlier today, is the flipping of Travis Hunt from Florida State to Jackson State, and then Jackson State Twitter. Wow. Some things were said. Things were done. Mistakes were made. I hope people will, calm down. The young man didn't do anything personally to you. He didn't kill your dog. He didn't steal your car. He didn't, set your house on fire. For the love of God, he just decided to attend a different school. People, come on, get some perspective about things. But I'll be working on that, and that should hopefully be posted soon. Are once again open to working title, but the Nutties awards for offensive defensive player of the year, for offensive lineman of the year, defensive lineman of the year, wide receiver, tight end, running back of the year, linebacker, defensive back, and what do you call it? Special teams. There it is. Players of the year. If anyone wants to make nominations, I'll be taking nominations today and tomorrow. I want to try to get that up by Friday, hopefully, on Nuts and Bolts Sports. I'm also working on a big, giant, endlessly large writing project for Around the Block. Black History, which is another site I write for, has to do with sort of the history of Black coaches at predominantly white and Power 5 institutions. And if, what's happened now with Marcus Freeman and to a lesser extent what's happened with Mel Tucker, if that is finally going to initiate a long-term change, because, when last I checked, even with the addition of Marcus Freeman, 9.25 93% of the coaches at the FBS level are African American or Black coaches. That is a disturbingly low number, and lower, in fact, than 10 years ago. So hopefully we'll be seeing some change in that.
All right. Great stuff, Bill. Like I said, cannot wait to see all the stuff you're putting out. Make sure you guys go and check it all out as well. Thank you so much for being on the show. Once again, we love having you. And we'll see you next time. All right, Bill. Chris, why don't you go ahead, let the people know what you got going on, where they can follow you at, all that good stuff.
Be on social media, @2smooth_Chris on Instagram. And actually, man, I write for a couple more websites. I did an article today, man, talking about the NFL, a preview about the games coming up for Sports Radio America. I'm trying nuts and bolts to sports. I got a ton of stuff coming up. Actually, I'll be covering a college bowl game on December 30th. Michigan State, Pittsburgh, and Atlanta, Georgia. So I'll be in your city, man. So when I'm in your city, I'll hit you up that weekend, man, around New Year's time. I'll be covering my second bowl game. Very excited. You know, I'm prepping for next year. So December's like my year month to prep for next year. So I ain't doing too much this month, just trying to prepare for next year.
Absolutely. I feel you. And like you said, once you are up here, we absolutely will link up. Appreciate you so much, man. Make sure you all check out everything Chris has got going on. Can't wait to check it out too. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Thanks for being on the show. And Mr. Joey Quiroga, how are you doing? Thank you so much for being on the show once again. Let the people know what you got going on and where they can follow you at, all that good stuff.
Thanks a lot, man. First off, thanks for having me, man. I love this show. I love being on here and love cutting up about sports with you guys. But follow me on Twitter at RealJoeyQ34. And what I'm working on right now is getting on live on the airwaves here in Las Vegas. I do have a mentor, a friend that is looking to bring some people on the live airwaves here in Las Vegas. He's a great guy. His name is Ken Thompson. If you want to follow him, you can just search for Ken Thompson. No P, just TOMSON, or follow SportsX Radio. He does a lot of great things here in Las Vegas. Huge Raiders fan, huge sports fan, and he and I linked up in the past. And now he has been not feeling so well, so I might be sitting in on him. Nothing confirmed as of this moment right now, but I might be sitting in for the legendary KT here in Las Vegas on a couple shows on the airwaves, talking about sports, talking about Raiders, talking about CFP, talking about the bowl games, Las Vegas Golden Knights, anything of those sorts of whatever's going on in Vegas, and a little bit abroad, like I said, CFP, college football, coaching carousel, and of course, the legendary NFL. That's what I got going on.
All right. Well, super great stuff. Like I said, can't wait to see everything that you got going on. Obviously, well wishes to KT. Hopefully he gets healthy, gets back up on his feet, but I'm sure you're going to make the most of the opportunity. So can't wait to see that from you. Thank you for being on the show once again, sir. Always a pleasure having you. All right. And that is it for No Huddle Necessary. You guys actually got a little lucky. You guys got a little bit of overtime there with a question at the end. Jeff was gracious to allow us to have a little bit more fun here with his FaceTime. But thank you all so much for watching. Like I said, you guys are awesome. Thank you once again to all of our guests. Again, you guys are the ones that make the show special. I just get to sit here and enjoy the conversation. But this has been the newest episode of No Huddle Necessary. Thank you all for watching, and make sure you check us out next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we're going to have another great panel of guests, a bunch of great things to talk about. The NFL just keeps being as crazy as ever, so I'm sure that there's going to be great topics. There are always great topics here at No Huddle Necessary. It's what we do. But thanks once again to all of our guests. Thank you to our viewers, and I will see you next time. Peace.